Welcome to my crafting channel. I'm Alana from Upcycling NZ. Let's upcycle. For project number 1, I was gifted these little citronella candles in concrete pots. My sister-in-law probably thought that with young kids running around the house it wasn't a great idea to have these burning. And for sure she'd know that I'd want to upcycle these. So I'm taking some folk art paint in the colour hydrangea. And I won't be painting the bottom of these because they have a safety label on them and I don't want to remove that. This paint had excellent coverage, so I only needed one really good coat. Then I'm going to take one of these beautiful napkins that have a kind of grey to silver print on them. This one's a 3-ply, so I want to remove both of the extra plies from it. If you don't, you end up with air bubbles between the two layers. I'm taking a measurement of the side and I'll cut my pieces just a little bit short of that. I know that the length of my strips will go all the way around each pot. So you can use PVA, decoupage medium or Mod Podge for this. And I'm just getting a nice even layer and I'm kind of gently stretching that around the pot as I go. Once I reach the point where the two ends meet, I'm going to take a wet paintbrush and just apply that down the side and it will tear away nicely. Then I can apply a generous layer of glue all the way around the outside, just being careful not to press too hard or rip my napkin. I completed all 3 pots and I love how they looked once they were dry. Now I'm going to take 3 hydrangea transfers and there's a little bit of text along with them. These are really easy to use. You just peel them off the backing sheet, lay them on your surface. Rub quite firmly with the tool that comes with them and then start to lift one side and work your way across, making sure that every part of the transfer has made contact. If it's not lifting and there's some resistance, just lay it back down and continue to rub until it releases. I got these transfers from the Temu website. They have quite a wide range of them, but they're not all the same and not all the same quality. But these ones are lovely and flat. They go on with a matte finish and they are absolutely gorgeous when they're completed. You'll notice that I'm using the transfer sheet to burnish the image and ensure that it's making good contact to my base. I really love the way these have turned out. Not only do they look beautiful, but they smell gorgeous with the citronella candle as well. These are so feminine and delicate, they just wouldn't look right going back in the box the way that it is. So I'm going to give it a quick paint job. The folk art paint really does have excellent coverage. I'm painting around the brand name and where it says that they are citronella candles. Next I'm going to use a little piece of that napkin again so that the box ties back in with the candles. And I'll just decoupage that on in the same way. I'm using water on a fine paintbrush again to be able to remove that piece from around the label. I used that method all around the edges and was able to glue the frayed edge down so I had a lovely sharp edge. I have some space down at our local store now and I'm afraid I didn't get much footage because I took it to the store before I had done the final photos. But it looked lovely down there. I just put a bit of twine around it. For project number 2, I'll be upcycling this little box that I got from a thrift store for $1. Looks like it was Alex's art project. I've sanded off any raised surfaces and I'm using this acrylic paint remnant in the colour Craigburn and giving that a really good coat. Once that was dry, I gave it a second coat. Next I'll be taking some of the roll of embossed wallpaper that I got for $1 from a thrift store And I'm just going to measure it to go around the sides. I'm using PVA to glue that on, and bear in mind that the thicker your paper when you're decoupaging, the more glue you're going to need. I used a little plastic spatula to press out any air bubbles and applied it to all 4 sides. Once that was completely dry, I used a heavy grit sandpaper, and in a downward motion I cleaned up the edge by sanding away any excess. I then gave it an all-over coat in PVA glue to help protect that wallpaper. I want to decorate the inside floor of the tray, so I'll be taking this beautiful black and white napkin and I'm removing the extra ply from the back. Then with my fingernails I'm just going to size up exactly what size I need to put inside there. And I'll cut that to fit, centering the pattern as best I can. I'm ensuring I smooth the glue out really well for the tissue paper. I'm being very gentle with my paintbrush this time, trying to smooth out all of the air bubbles without ripping the tissue paper. Then I'll put another coat of PVA all over the top. I have another acrylic paint remnant in black, and I'll paint all of the wallpaper around the sides with one coat. When the paint had dried, I took some of the Craigburn paint again on a sponge brush, and I offloaded most of the paint, and I'm just dry brushing it across the surface just to highlight those raised points. Then I just touched up around the edges where the wallpaper met the wood. Now I want to open those holes up again, so I'm taking my little craft knife and I'm just cutting the wallpaper away around those holes. Then I'll replace the handles that were there with this nylon cord, and I'm just melting the ends so that they don't fray and tying them in a knot to secure them. I got these little corner adornments on Temu, the little metal reinforcements, and I'm using a little nail that's long to be able to create a pilot hole before I put the tiny little nails that go into this. They are so little that I need to use pliers to put them in there. There are 4 little nails in each of the little corner pieces, and I applied them to all 4 corners. I feel like these elevated this piece to a more high-end look. I'll add some age with some antiquing wax, and I watered that down, and I'm just going to apply that to all of the edges and the 4 corners. I wanted the aging to be very subtle, so I've wiped away any excess wax with a wet wipe. On closer inspection, I wasn't happy with the very edge of my napkin, so I'm going to add some black paint, and I'm just going to apply it all the way around the edges to make sure that any colour differences are addressed. And again, I've just used a wet wipe to remove any excess paint. So my little tray is finished, and I absolutely love the outcome. I think it's dark and moody, and it would fit in with a lot of decor because of that neutral colour. Here's the before and after pictures. Let me know what you think of that transformation. For my last project, I've got this beautiful frame. It's got a couple of imperfections, and I'm going to embrace those imperfections and give this a vintage look, and that'll just add to its aged and worn look, even though the frame itself isn't that old. I'll give it a clean up, and when I was cleaning the velvet on the back by using sellotape to lift the lint, I discovered that that back stand, that piece was beyond salvage. So I'm gluing down the areas that had lifted, and I'm going to add some vintage looking paper that I got from Temu onto the back in a collage style, and I'll allow that to dry. I'll be using some music paper along with some of the Temu website vintage looking papers. I've opened the frame, and I'm actually going to glue directly to the glass with my PVA glue and make up a bit of a mashup of a variety of different elements. I'll close that up now and turn it over, and then I'll start to apply collage to the front of my frame as well. There's no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing, I'm just organically letting it come together. Next, I'm taking a bit of coffee dyed lace and a little piece of cooking string, and I'm going to attach that to the corner of the frame with a silver dome. I just used hot glue for this. Then I'm going to use this pearl coloured hat pin to hold that lace in place on the frame, and I'll just use a little hot glue to hold that down. The little key you saw sitting there is actually just off a 21st cake, and I've cut off the part that said 21, and I'm going to glue that to the frame with the hot glue as well. And I've got a little piece of tin and a little piece of jewellery I'll add to the bottom. I should have done this before, but now I'm going to paint that key black. I think it needed to stand out from the frame and become a feature. I let a bit of silver show through, and I even wiped back some of the paint later on to allow more silver to show. Now I've got another piece of jewellery, this beautiful little heart, and I'll tie that in a knot on the cooking string. I collect a lot of broken jewellery for my crafting, and it comes in very handy. Now I'm going to add some age with some antiquing wax and a little bit of water. I'm going to apply that to the ends of my lace. And I'll also add it to my paper collage pieces wherever there is a raw edge and right around the edges of the frame. I'm just wiping away any excess with a wet wipe if I feel like it's too dark, or building it up again if it needs more. I'll also use wax to create a shadow behind the key. So I was happy with how that looked. I got some little transfers, and this is a great way to use up your little tiny transfers or offcuts. And I'll apply a whole lot of these with a vintage theme to fill out my frame. And the transfers need to be sealed, so I'm just going to buff on some clear wax all over the frame and the paper and those transfers, and I'll buff that off. I just need to tidy up that stand at the back, so I'm just sanding in a downward motion and making sure that I have a nice sharp edge on it, and then I'll add a bit of antiquing wax just to the edges to give it a bit of age. I'll clear wax the paper to help seal that in, And then I'm just going to clean up the back one more time with some sellotape to remove any lint from my velvet back lining. And that's my last project finished for the day. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for stopping by. Click like if you liked it. Comment if you have something to say. Share it if you think other people need to see it. And subscribe just because you can.